Chris just wants to stay near the pizza. Why is that camera on?
It's not doing anything. I've turned it off, but I think it's because StreamYard's accessed it.
You're supposed to turn it off in the StreamYard, aren't you? Okay. Are we on?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, everyone.
Good evening to the internet.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the internet and to the people in the room. Well done, guys, for turning out in this hideous January weather that we're experiencing down here in Brighton at the moment. But thank you very much for joining us for Meetup number 12 of the AWS Brighton User Group. We are this evening going to give you a quick reInvent recap, a recap of the announcements at reInvent 2025. But before we do, let's go through the usual introductory stuff. If the clicker works, is it the big button?
There's a button on the side. There's a slide on the side, and then the light will go green.
That one?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, slide it up.
Slide it up.
Yeah.
Oh, we got the ons. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then it's the normal button. I don't know if it's
Yeah. He turned it off. There we go. There we go. Slide number 2. That was easy. Welcome to the AWS Brighton User Group. I've already done that. So tonight's agenda, we're a little bit late because the pizza guy has been around the block a few times, but we did manage to send our Silicon Brighton supporter, Steve Rackley, to run and get the pizzas off the pizza guy. So those of us who are in the room have managed to eat some pizza. But 6:30 to 6:40, just the intro from me and a little bit about Silicon Brighton because Steve has had to go after running around in the rain to get the pizza. And then 6:40 to 7:50, John, with my help occasionally if he runs out of steam, we are going to give you a recap of the announcements from reInvent 2025. AWS do prepare a deck that they send out to all of the AWS User Group leaders. It's 200 slides long, the official AWS deck, but thankfully we're not going to show you all 200 slides. We managed to get it down to about 195, I think. But we are going to try and do that by 7:50 p.m. And obviously, feel free to ask us any questions as we go. And then at 7:50, we may do some closing remarks, we may not, and then we'll probably go to the pub at 8 o'clock. There's a slide at the end, is there? Oh, wow. Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll get to that when we get there. I think I know everyone in the room, but for the benefit of anybody who may be online or watching this later, who am I? My name's Carl Robinson. I am an AWS community builder in the cloud operations category. I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Logicata, which is an AWS partner specializing in professional services and managed services for small and medium businesses running web apps in AWS. So that's me. That's my link tree. Hand over to John to introduce himself.
You can keep the clicker. I'll just go next slide when I'm done. Sod. So hi, I'm John. You're going to get bored of listening to me because I'll do most of this in a minute. I am also a community builder, although they never kicked me out. In the serverless category, which they put us in categories because Amazon loves data, but I don't only talk about serverless, but mostly it's serverless and AI these days because I think everyone is. That's my link tree. I promise there's nothing weird in there. It's just our YouTube and the podcast. I mean, I'm weird, but there's nothing that would require age verification. I am principal cloud engineer at Logicata. Those of you that have seen us before, yes, I had a promotion. I say had in the most capitalistic way possible. I negotiated it, so very appropriate. But yeah, I'm a community builder, user group lead. I do this sort of thing. I did a handful of talks last year, and it's dangerous to get between me and a microphone. Fight me.
There we go. I'm not going to fight you. You're a national champion at some form of karate or other. I don't know the specifics, but he's got gold medals and everything to prove it. So I'm not going to try and fight him. But we've got some other leaders, but they're not here. So Steve is somewhere, I don't know, on holiday. Anita, yeah, Steve did say he's going to join online. So hi, Steve, if you join the stream. Anita is also somewhat indisposed this evening. So John and I are running tonight's meetup ourselves. That's a link tree for the user group. Just if you want to get access to any of our content, our Meetup page, and so on and so forth. I've already mentioned Logicata. We pay for the beer and the pizza. Thank you, Logicata. John and I both work for Logicata, and we've spoken about it already. FreedomWorks give us access to their wonderful co-working space, so we can host our meetings. I think we've done 3 or 4 here now, and all of our meetups for 2026 are planned to be here in FreedomWorks, Bart's House, Brighton, which if you are a Domino's pizza driver and you're watching this, it's not near the town hall. It's on Black Lion Street. Yeah, bring the pizzas to the right door next time, please. Thank you very much, FreedomWorks. If anybody's looking for a co-working space, they have great packages where you can just buy a pass to come in occasionally for a few hours a month, or you can go right up to having a dedicated office space in FreedomWorks. We're also supported by Silicon Brighton. Tonight, the support extended to Steve running around the block to get the pizzas from the back of the building where the pizza guy was. But also Silicon Brighton do an awful lot more than that for us. So they are providing the AV equipment and personnel who are streaming this live onto YouTube for us this evening. But Silicon Brighton not only support the AWS Brighton User Group, but a whole bunch of 30 or so tech meetups in Brighton, which you can see each of those logos there is a tech meetup in Brighton, which is facilitated by Silicon Brighton, and pretty much any aspect of tech you can think of, there is a meetup out there for you. So check out the Silicon Brighton page to see what other meetups are available. These are supporters of Silicon Brighton. The Logicata logo should be in the middle there somewhere because we are a supporter of Silicon Brighton, but these are basically all of the local companies who are supporting Silicon Brighton financially to help them in their mission of championing the tech scene in Brighton, primarily through meetups. James Chase is Steve Rackley's recruitment company who helped bootstrap Silicon Brighton. And there are also a number of sponsors who we need to mention of Silicon Brighton, Plus Accounting, More Law, Illyrity, and I don't know anything about any of those, but I'm sure it tells you on the slides if you'd like to watch this back later. Stay up to date on all the Silicon Brighton activity. This is their QR code, which will take you through to everything that's going on in Silicon Brighton. And of course, the big news from a Silicon Brighton perspective is they launched a new one-day tech conference in Brighton last year, Evolve 25, which Logicata was a sponsor of, and AWS Brighton User Group was present there, running Builder Cards sessions for anyone who wanted to play AWS Builder Cards, which seemed to go down very well with the student community. And it was such a great success. I think they got about 3,000 people through the doors in Brighton Dome in July last year. They're doing it again this year. So Evolve 26 will take place on the 26th of June, 2026 in the Brighton Centre. So a new bigger venue, ambition to get more people through the doors this year. Logicata will be sponsoring again. AWS Brighton User Group will be there doing something, probably Builder Cards and cookies like last year. But there is a Linktree, a QR code there if you want to buy a ticket for the Evolve 2026 conference. There's a discount code available on that QR code. I think it's 50% off, but I think you just need to use the code AWS Brighton. So if you go onto the Evolve website, put the AWS Brighton discount code in, you'll get 50% off the ticket entry price. I can't tell you what the ticket entry price is and therefore what that discount is worth, but check it out online on the Evolve website. So that is all for the intro and the preamble. So I'm going to hand the microphone back to... No? Oh, big numbers. All right, I'm doing big numbers. You can see we've really prepared this well in advance. It's so slick. So I haven't even seen these slides, so I don't know what the big numbers are. I'll have to read. Is one of them 2025? That's quite a big number. So I'll have a look at these slides and read them out for the benefit of the audience. But obviously, for those of you who don't know, there was some discussion this evening about what reInvent actually is. Well, reInvent is AWS's big annual conference that runs in Las Vegas every year. When I say big, it's about 60,000 attendees. That's on a slide, is it? All right. Well, I don't need a slide for that. I know these numbers. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about some big numbers after Builder Center then. What do we got here? This is Builder Center. Okay. So if you're doing anything with AWS, such as getting certified, doing any training, etc., then you ought to have a Builder Center account. If you happen to be going to reInvent, you get loads of swag just for signing up for one. You did last year. I think John's got his his AWS bomber jacket that he got just for signing up for a Builder Center account. But if any of you have ever done anything with AWS, so training, certification, and so on and so forth, you'll know that the whole experience has been very fragmented, lots of different systems, lots of different portals that you've got separate logins for and separate email addresses and everything else, and trying to bring all of that together or understand what it all is a bit of a nightmare. The idea of Builder Center is consolidating all of those old, training and certification accounts, skill builder accounts, and so on and so forth. So if you are working, building on AWS, you ought to have a Builder Center account if you haven't already, and that will give you access to various things, as I say, this is skill builder training and your certs and any other badges that you may have earned through doing AWS training. So what does it say? Access to a 200-page PDF with key reInvent announcements. So that's Go to Builder Center to get the slides. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to another slide I haven't seen yet. So well, that's just a legend, so we don't need to worry about that. You've left all this in. Did you really want me to talk about this stuff? Yeah. So I was talking about what reInvent is. We haven't got to that slide yet, but there's this concept of pre-invent, which is basically a whole bunch of announcements in the build-up to reInvent. So I don't know if any of you follow AWS News. If you don't, there's a really easy way for you to follow AWS News. Once a week, I curate a list of AWS News, which I share via my weekly AWS Roundup newsletter. And then John and I pick a selection of those articles, which we talk about on our weekly AWS News podcast with guests from the AWS community. So that's a great way to keep up to date with AWS News. Before reInvent, this whole raft of pre-invent announcements. I've never quite understood who decides what is a pre-invent announcement and what is a reInvent announcement. So what actually gets announced at the show versus what gets announced in the build up to the show, because some of the things that get announced in the pre-invent period are just as big, if not bigger, than the things that actually get announced at the show. I'd have thought that was kind of second best, really. If I was launching a product, I'd probably want it to be announced at the event. But we got this whole kind of pre-invent period and the build up to the event itself. It says, as it says here on the slide, for the recap, any announcements that were made from October 28th have been included in the pre-invent period. So between 28th of October up to 1st of December, when the reInvent conference started. That's just a picture. So there's not really a lot to say about that one, although there's loads of notes about it. But that'd be a picture in the sponsor pavilion at reInvent. Is that what they call it? What do they call it? No, they call it something else, don't they? Where all the trade show stands are, basically. The expo, exactly. So that's a picture taken at the AWS stand in the expo hall. But the notes say AWS reInvent is a learning conference hosted by AWS for the global cloud computing community. I'm still not seeing any big numbers in there, but I'm sure they'll come. 60,000 people, 5 or 6 hotels in Vegas, lots of waiting around to get buses between those hotels, because if you've ever been to Vegas, you'll know that things are quite big and quite far apart. 1 mile an hour. Oh, here we go. 60,000 attendees on site, and a bit above. Oh, that's one of those. Yes. I was reading from the notes. So as I said, 60,000 attendees. I had memorized that number. It's one that's stuck in there. 2 million online views, 3,500 sessions. So that's talks delivered during the conference. 3,000 speakers doing talks. So some must have done more than one by my mental arithmetic there. No idea. And then we had 530 total updates, 414 during the pre-invent period, and 116 updates during actual reInvent week from November the 30th to December the 5th. Blah, blah, blah. There's an even bigger number on that second slide. What's that all about? Strands Agents SDK downloads, 5,299,000. John, I'm sure, will tell you what Strands Agents is. Yeah, but at which point are you taking over this presentation, John? So that's Ruba Borno. She's the head of partners at AWS. I don't know what we need to say about Ruba. Yeah. Yeah, I think you have. I don't think you've deleted any of them, have you? So I think we're still in. No, that's just only 86 slides. But good news is we're on 29 already, so I'm going quite quickly. Who's that fella? Oh, Peter DeSantis, yeah, who's now taken over the new AGI division of AWS, which is where they're putting all of the AI services. So all of their kind of LLMs, all of their custom silicon, etc., that they are building and developing for AI workloads. That's all now coming under a new unit, I believe, called the AGI division or team or whatever. Yeah, Peter DeSantis has taken on the role to head that up. So it's possibly one of the coolest jobs in the world, and I'm sure it's very well paid. And that's Werner's last keynote at reInvent. I'm not sure why. Is he leaving, or is he not doing a keynote anymore? Yeah, fair enough. He's famous for his cool T-shirts that he wears when he presents doing his reInvent keynote. I don't know what that one says. Open mind for a different view and nothing else matters. There we go. That's what this year's T-shirt said. But he also gets very hot under the lights and usually has several T-shirt changes during his keynote. But we won't get to see that again because it was his last keynote this year. Ready? Fasten your seatbelts because I'm going to hand the microphone back to John. There we go.
Anyone want some pizza? Go now.
Out or forever hold your pizza.
Yeah, forever hold your pizza. Too many things in too many hands. Right. So I'm going to do this as quickly as I don't even have what the time is here. That's already been open for an hour. And how long have I got? I have got about an hour. Okay. Let's see how we go. I'll just talk quick. First thing. Oh, great. Wonderful. There is an AI league because, you know, everyone loves competition. Apparently, you can win money if you do stuff with AI. I'm not reading all that. Expanding flagship AI tournament with blah, blah, blah. League transforms how builders use AI services, blah, blah, blah. Program provides participants quick orientation, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you can win 50 grand. That's cool. I think it's because they killed Deep Racer and everyone was very unhappy. And now there's more AI things you can do and you can win money. Everyone likes money. Deep Racer was in that video, but they've killed Deep Racer because, I don't know, no one wants the cars anymore. But yeah, there's an AI league. If you do AI things, you can win money, get credits if you do it as a big org. So if you work for, I don't know, Cognizant or like whoever, you can do that. That's a thing. Right. Builder Center. He spoke about Builder Center already, and they have put a whole bunch of stuff in there. So workshops, we do workshops occasionally. You can find them through Builder Center. You need a Builder ID, which is the account, and that's kind of what's rationalized all the shmoo all together. Workshops at different levels, from 100 all the way to 400, which is beginner up to expert. I don't know what the other two are in the middle. Is it intermediate and advanced? Something like that? I don't know. But there's workshops, workshop catalog, go Builder Center, do stuff. You find information about us on there as well, both as community builders, because there's a section about CBs on there, and about the user group. And I think this event was published on there and all sorts of other stuff. Cool. Next. They really want you to sign up for it. Look, this is about the 6th slide we've had for Builder. They really want you to do it. Someone scan it, please. Jeez. Yes, exactly. The other thing is the bomber jacket is a very good point. The other thing is any sort of workshops and stuff that we do, and we will do one at some point this year. Might be April, might be October. I haven't picked because we don't have a speaker for either of those yet. You will probably need a builder ID. So if you do that ahead of time, it saves the 20 minutes of faffing around trying to get that set up. Wonderful. Next. I have cut out large sections of these. So you'll see there's whole sections that I've removed, and now I've just taken out the slide page because like I took the whole analytics thing out because who cares? But you'll see on all these title pages, there's 13 announcements, and how many of them were pre-invent. There won't be that many in each of them. Every single one I've taken a weed whacker to. So let's go. Single action snapshot copy in AWS backup. Who does backups? That's disturbing. One person does backups. You should all be doing backups. Jesus. If you use AWS backup and you needed to copy snapshots from one region to another for offsite, you don't have to do that in 2 moves now. You can do it in 1. That's a whole announcement right there. It's really good, but it's really boring. So next. Conditional write-in copy for S3. This is useful. So S3 went from eventually consistent to read after write strong consistency in 2020. And what this does now is you can verify things before you copy them or write over them or whatever. Yeah, so you can make sure that it is the state you expect it to be before you touch it, which is always good because you end up with, it fixes nasty race conditions and stuff that you can get in S3. Wonderful. Next. See, I told you I'd taken a weed whacker to it. There was set there. How many were meant to be there? 7. I think I've done 2. 13. Well, I don't care about Transform. I don't know anything about Transform. I don't care about Transform. Compute and containers. I care about this. So there was a bit more in here. I don't know that I'm going to be quite as quick as Matt Garman on the shot clock, though, because I think he did all of these in about 10 minutes. I've got longer than him. 17 of these. We don't have 17. So anyone use EKS? Shit, I have to talk about it. Okay, EKS capabilities were launched just day 0 of reInvent on the 30th of November. So it's GA, it's reInvent, it's available everywhere. What it basically does is blah, 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 blah. It's kind of a competitor to things like Helm and what have you. You can kind of do that much more natively. Some of the things that you can do out of the box using things like Argo CD and ACK is you can just say, I want my cluster to have Argo in it, please. You don't have to go and do a Helm install or anything like that. You just sort of go button and it does it. So if you care about that, that is good. Provision control plane. Does anyone actually do really high performance compute stuff with EKS? No, probably not, because nobody does. But you can now provision your capacity for your control plane, right? So the control plane is the thing what tells everything else where it runs. And historically, that was just, it ran over there somewhere. Now you can tell it where to run. That's useful if you absolutely need to guarantee capacity and availability, as opposed to just relying on shared infrastructure. It's also good, I think, if you need to worry about scaling your control plane, because you can go from normal XL, 2XL, 4XL, and you just get more performance at the control plane, right? So if you're moving thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pods and things around, you can control how quickly that kind of does it, because you can say how much oomph you want your control plane to have. Cool. Next. ECS Express mode. Anyone use ECS? Yay, good. That's someone with a brain. Sod Kubernetes. Yes, good. There's a giggle over there. Wonderful. ECS is a bit of a sod to set up because much like EKS, what it does is it runs containers. Yeah, but it doesn't do it with Kubernetes. It's kind of Amazon's take on Docker Swarm, effectively, if you've never used it. I quite like it. I rate it quite highly. What ECS, to set it up is a bit of a faff, right? What you've got to do is you provision the cluster and then you tell it where the compute's coming from. And you could use Fargate, you could use EC2, or you could use Spot instances. You could use Fargate Spot, you could do, and then you've got to worry about networking and you've got to worry about security and all this jazz. ECS Express is one of those things that I feel very conflicted about because it makes doing things in the console easier, which I feel very conflicted about. That it's good. Doing things easier is good, but it's one of those things that just obfuscates away all of the nasty things under the cover. So you go ECS, work please. ECS Express does that, right? I still think you should Terraform it or do it in CloudFormation or something. But if you don't want to do that, because I don't know why, you can just push button and it'll do it. Next. Now we're into EC2. It's a bit old fashioned, but we're talking about auto scaling. So kind of medium levels of new. You can slightly more configure your lifecycle policies for scale in. Wow. I guess it's really dry, this one. But the long and short of it is there's new lifecycle hooks when instances are scaling in. So you can say, oh, this is a scaling event. I want to trigger this other processing over here, or do something with a Lambda, or do something in SSM. Cool. Next. You can archive your ECR images at last. At last. So if anyone's ever used third-party image repo type, image registry type things, GitLab or Nexus or whatever, archiving in them is a thing. So I want to keep my image hot for a while, and then I want to make it cheaper, and then I want to get rid of it. You couldn't do that with ECR. Now you can. It used to just be, it's hot or it's not there. Now you've got this kind of intermediary of, I can live with it taking a few hours before I can get to it, but the image is still there. But it doesn't cost you full rates, right? It costs you rather a lot less. That's really good if you have to keep your images for archival purposes, for I don't know, compliance, regulatory purposes, whatever, I would argue you should be able to rebuild them from source. But if not, there you go. That's a thing. And there's a dog over there. That's distracting. Cool. I told you, weed whacker. Now we're in databases. There's not 8 announcements we're going to talk about. So there's a few of them. I like this one. Savings plans for databases. I like this one a lot. So anyone run databases in AWS? Not you. I know you don't. Route 53 is a database. Yeah, that's supported. So, up until reasonably recently, if you wanted to save money on running your databases, you had to use a reserved instance, right? That was it. There was no way around it. Reserved instances are great for saving money, but they're horribly inflexible. You say, I am doing this on this box for a year. Wonderful. Save you a load of money. Great. No flexibility. On the compute side of things, you could do compute savings plans, which is basically, I will spend X amount of money in compute, which was EC2, Lambda, and Fargate. Wonderful. And you get 20% off or whatever. They've finally done that for databases. So this is one of the things that it's unreasonably good, but I'm equally annoyed about it because it's not as good as I think it should be, which is, no one's ever happy, right? Everyone's a critic. So now, savings plans, you can save up to 35% when you can commit to a consistent amount of usage per hour over a 1-year term. This applies to Aurora, RDS, DynamoDB, Elasticache. I'm going to do the full name, DocumentDB, open bracket, with MongoDB compatibility, close bracket. That is the full product. Jeez. Neptune, Keyspaces, open bracket, for Apache Cassandra, close bracket, TimeStream, or database migration service. And when I wrote about this on the blog that I did for this, and then said, why on earth would you do that? Someone got very uppity at me and said, well, people use it for backups. Yeah, I know. I was just being deliberately, triggering, which it worked. Thanks for the engagement. But this is good generally. It's not for every instance type. So it does support Elasticache. Great. Only supports Valkey, not Redis or Memcache. So if you're using Valkey, you can save more money, but not if you're using Redis, sorry. If you're doing it with RDS, wonderful. Only if you're using the latest instance types and not the T instance series. Less good. So good, generally, yes. As new instances comes along, Amazon have committed to making them available, but old ones, you are still SOL, I'm afraid. I don't want to ruin Silicon Brighton's non-swearing, so that'll have to do. Does anyone care about masking data? No? Cool. We'll move on. This one's cool, though. So here's a thing that you could do in Redshift and Dynamo and Athena. That's the one. Yes, the one starts with an A, but it's not Aurora. There was an online query interface. You could just go and write queries and get some data, and that was great. This was wonderful. Didn't exist for any of the sort of SQL type databases. It does now, but only for DSQL, which was released in reInvent 24, I think. Yeah. Breathe. So reInvent 24, they released DSQL, which was distributed SQL, which is the globally replicated high availability database that you can just use anywhere in the world. Wonderful. Now you can go into the console and write queries against it too, without having to connect like SQL Workbench or whatever, which I think is pretty cool. It's really useful. I'd love it to be available for other things, and maybe it will be eventually, but it isn't right now. This is also cool. You can blue-green Aurora Global. Blue-green, everyone familiar with blue-green as a concept? Yeah. Excuse me. You can now do this with Aurora Global. I don't know about DSQL, but maybe soon. And the idea is if you want to do a parameter group change, or if you want to do a schema update or kind of whatever, it will manage the blue and the green side of things for you. You just say, make this thing happen. Thanks. And it will bring the new one up, it'll move your traffic, get rid of the old one, roll itself back if it blows up and all that jazz. So that's really, really, really cool if you need that. Saves you doing things in the middle of the night because, it's a breaking schema change. Cool, just blue-green it. Reduce the downtime to 5 seconds. That's really quick. That's so fast that I don't think any monitoring tool would probably notice. So I'll take that. Breathe. How long have we been going for? I have been doing that now for 13 minutes, and I am on slide 49. So let's see how quick we can keep going. It's a good job I do a combat sport, right? I've still got the cardiovascular for this. Yeah. I did. I haven't eaten them yet, though, so we'll see how we get on. Right. Edge, networking, and content delivery. I promise there's not 18 things in this list. So first thing, accelerated recovery in Route 53. I had to put this in because this came off the back of Route 53 dying and the internet melting for about 18 hours. So I had to put this one in. The long and the short of it is they now guarantee that it will come back within 60 minutes if you opt your Route 53 hosted domain in, right? I think it was an internal Route 53 thing that melted, but I think that knocked quite a bit of confidence in the market, and everyone's gone, oh, I don't trust it. Oh, it's not going to stay up. Wonderful. Now you get a guaranteed recovery time of an hour. I don't know what the SLAs are on that and how much money you get back, but that's what that is. It only applies if there's a service disruption in US East 1, North Virginia. But that kind of makes sense because that's where it lives. Anyone that says, oh, it's a global service, let me introduce you to the concept of no, it's not. It's officially a global service. It's one of those things that it's global, but it's got to live somewhere. So it lives in North Virginia. And that's the same with a lot of things. CloudFront does that and a few others. IAM does that. Ergo, if there's a disruption to Route 53 in North Virginia and you've turned on your thing that says, I want my guaranteed recovery time, please, you get it. Wonderful. Probably. Doesn't say on here. Why don't you go and ask, I don't know, go find an executive and ask them. Yeah. This is a less cool, but kind of handy. If you must mandate that all encryption in flight in your VPC is encrypted at all times, all traffic, all the time, you can turn that on now and force it. Cool. I personally have always thought that's a bit overkill, a little bit theatre, right? Because you're already inside the AWS perimeter. Who gives a monkeys if it's encrypted or not? But if you need to tell an audit person that it is, you can now tell them that it is, and it's enforced by policy rather than by, well, everything's turned on, so it should be. There's now a policy that forces it. Cool. Next. Target optimizer for ALB. Again, if you're using ALBs and EC2s, this is kind of interesting. The short version is you can give it another metric by which it routes and spreads traffic over your pool of instances, right? So if you've got one server behind one load balancer, obviously that's getting 100% of the traffic. If you've got two and you don't turn on sticky sessions, because that you shouldn't, that tends to smear it reasonably evenly. Great. But you might have smear. It was completely unintentional, and I'm not sorry to the internet for that one. The idea is you put an agent on all of your machines, and if one of your machines is struggling for unrelated reasons, I don't know, maybe it's got a very big package update that it's doing and the rest of them aren't, maybe it's smaller, whatever, that agent goes back and tells the ALB via the Amazon control plane, send less to this one, so you don't get those weird transient problems wherein one server just randomly starts balking, so you get a spike in your 500 codes or whatever, but it's mostly fine. That helps smooth all of those things over. So that's really quite cool. Weighted target groups for NLBs. Great, wonderful. Basically what they're doing is they're turning NLBs back into ALBs, because for those of you that were old enough and grey enough, which is, I think, everyone other than probably you, the first version of a load balancer is now called a classic load balancer. They split those into network and application many, many years ago now. And the idea being application load balancers work at layer 7 in the OSI model and network work at layer 4. And the result of that was you could do things on ALBs that you couldn't on NLBs, then basically backfilling all of that into NLBs. This is one of them. So now you can do weighted traffic groups and rules, which is cool because if you have to use an NLB for reasons, there's still certain protocols that ALBs don't support. ALBs are web only, right? So 18443. If you need to load balance AN other port, you can now do weighted rules and stuff where you couldn't before. Wonderful. I know you like this one. Amazon appears to have caught up to the idea that people might like to confirm how much they're going to pay ahead of time, which is kind of a bit antithetical to the original idea of the cloud of being OPEX rather than CAPEX and pay for what you use and all this jazz. With CloudFront, now you can say with a, what did you call this? A somewhat offensive to people's intelligence graphic?
Rather than describing what this actually is, we've got some infographics here explaining what flat rate pricing is. And it's like, come on, Amazon. The rest of the world knows what flat rate pricing is. You don't need to patronize us to explain it. Just tell us what the fees are.
Yeah, so that's the idea, is rather than paying for what you use, you can say, I know I am never going to use more than X, cap it there. Thank you very much. With no overages, which I think means if you go over it a bit, then it just sort of keeps running. They might want, if you do it regularly, they'll probably tell you that you want to go to the tier up. And if you hit max tier, then I don't want to explore that, because premium is $1,000 a month, which is actually still reasonably competitive because it's, I think it's 50 terabytes of egress and 500 million requests or something silly for $1,000. But the lower end ones, it's still the 50 terabytes of egress. That's standard. What they're doing is they're rating it based on number of requests. So if you have a small number of very large requests, that suits people quite well. And they're also rating it based on WAF rules that you apply, because this does also give you the WAF for free and some S3 for free and a few other bits and pieces. What is it? It's CloudFront, WAF, DDoS protection, so that's Shield, Route 53, CloudWatch logs, a serverless edge compute, which means that Matthias, who did these slides, couldn't work out if that was CloudFront functions or Lambda at edge, I think. I'm not sure which that is. And S3 storage credits and some Lambda stuff into a flat rate price. So I like that. I like that a lot. That has the capacity to save you, if you're doing, you know, a moderate amount of CloudFront stuff, probably quite a lot of money. If you do already have a, what is it, CloudFront savings bundle, I think is the term, you can't sign up for one of them. You have to wait for that to expire. Sorry. Too many fizzy drinks. I'll put this one in because this is something that has really annoyed me in the past. So ALBs, you can now do JSON Web Token verification on the ALB. Woo! If you've ever had to do that and gone, well, I've got a thing that has to go behind a load balancer, but I want to do JWT token verification because I don't want to use Cognito, you were SOL. Sorry. You had to do it. You had to put API gateway in place because that was the only thing that could do it. Now the load balancers can do it. Brilliant. I like this because it means I don't have to use Cognito. I can use something sensible like Firebase or Auth0 or whatever. Cognito's gotten a lot better. I will put that out there, and you don't have to. It's just making everyone's life a lot easier. If you want to use a different service for your JWT tokens, great. See, getting through it. What are we? Cool, 10 past. I had to put this in. I promise I've cut a lot of this out as well. If I don't talk about AI, I think an Amazon person will probably come and do this at me. No, they won't. But, you know, it's a hot topic. You've got to talk about it a bit. I think we were chatting earlier about which person's code assistant is better. It's gotten to that point. I use Kira. And neither of us do any real work anymore. We just shout at machines, which is brilliant. Cool. Right. Let's go. Reinforcement fine-tuning in Bedrock. Does anyone know what model fine-tuning is? One person. Cool. Sort of. Half of one person. The idea with fine-tuning is what you do is you take, they call it a teacher model, a big model, and you feed it context and information and tell it to make a smaller model. And what that does is that gives you a student or a pupil model. That takes its context and its decision matrices and various other things from like 1 million, billion, trillion size, whatever it is. I don't know what the numbers are. And it makes it much smaller, which is good because it's quicker to respond, easier to run, cheaper, yada, 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 yada. But because you've taken the big model and you've trained it on specific data and you've got a little model, it's an expert in the thing you taught it about. Brilliant. You can do that in Bedrock now. Wonderful. Policy in Bedrock Agent Core. Does anyone make agents? I mean, I know you act as an agent because you sort of take screenshots in and do things, and that's what an agent should do. I know you are an agent, but still. Anyone make agents, or shall we skip this? No? Cool, because I don't really understand it. Don't understand that one either, or that one. I should have got rid of them. There's now service tiers for Bedrock, which I promise I didn't break that. You'd have thought that would have come out of the big Amazon powerhouse of looking Matthias. I'm going to send this to him every time I shout at him. I'm going to clip it and go, Matthias, and just see what he does. The idea is you now have service tiers for Bedrock, so you can save yourself a bit of money if you don't really care how quickly it comes back. So if you need priority, you can have priority. If it's just sort of okay, you can say standard. If you really don't care how long it takes, you can drop down to flex, which I will be doing for our podcast thing, because if it takes 10 minutes to come back, I don't care, doesn't matter. So we'll be saving some money doing that. And if you need predictable performance with guaranteed capacity, you can do that as well with reserved capacity, because wonderful. So if you're using Bedrock, which if you're doing anything with LLMs in AWS, you should be, and you want to optimize your costs a bit better, you can do that. Wonderful. You can also make images. I just kept that in there because I really like the tap thing, because it went from, I really like this kind of side wipe things. That's why I kept it in there. The idea is there's now 4 new image editing tools, which they've added to Stability Image Services. Outpaint, Fast Upscale, Conservative Upscale, and Creative Upscale, which is cool, I guess. It's like the sci-fi movie when they say, zoom in, enhance. You can kind of do that now. That's what these things are doing. Wonderful. Next. Say, I've skipped a shed load. There was what, 30 of those? No, there wasn't. No, I've not skipped Kiro, because whilst that's AI, that's DevTools. That's in DevTools. I wouldn't skip Kiro. I couldn't bear it. App integration and serverless. So some has been cut out of here, but I like serverless, so there's a bit more in here. Cool. Right. Lambda durable functions. Yes, like this, but this is a very confusing service. So Lambda serverless compute is the first function as a service to the market. It's probably arguably the best. I've not used the other two. It's still the best. I don't care. It still has, for normal functions, a 15-minute execution time limit, right? Which meant if you were doing a thing and it took longer than 15 minutes, you had to work out how to handle that. You had to do an ECS task using a container image, or you had to break it out into a step function and do several lambdas, or you had to chain your lambdas together using choreography, but you shouldn't do that because it's a really bad idea. Don't do that. Now you can have durable functions, and what that does is it allows you to do multi-step applications directly within the one lambda. Brilliant, if you care about that sort of thing. There's a couple of things to take account of, though. They are very similar to regular Lambda functions, but you have to make sure that the code can cope with being restarted. So if it does anything that might be slightly different on a second run, you have to account for that. So there's a bit more work you need to do to make these work, but these make your multi-step workflows a whole lot easier because you don't have to break it out into step functions or do any kind of other I don't know, queue handling or any of that jazz to work with it, which is really good if you need that, which some people do. I will probably continue to use step functions just because I like the picture. But there we go. Blah, 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 blah. Anything else? Yeah, they're on for you can suspend them for up to 1 year and you don't pay for the idle compute, which is cool. What you'd need to wait for a year, I don't know, but you can. Lambda managed instances. This is interesting. So the idea of Lambda was always compute without the servers, right? You just code, run. Thank you very much. Now you can actually care about the servers behind it if you want to. Now that's useful in a couple of cases. Blah, blah, blah. Fully manages the infrastructure tasks, OS patching, blah, blah, blah. This enhancement is ideal for customers requiring specialized hardware configurations, as well as those with steady state or predictable workloads seeking to optimize costs while maintaining serverless experience. You can further improve costs by leveraging compute savings plans and reserved instances. That's kind of the long and the short of it, right? If you've gotten yourself into this weird scenario where you've got serverless compute that's long running and it's really expensive, but you don't want to refactor it into containers or back into old-fashioned servers, you can keep using Lambda and just tell it where the servers are now. Brilliant. Or if you need GPUs or something, you can say, boxes. Great. I like that. I'll never use it, but that's cool if you need it. Private integration with ALB for API gateway. That's quite handy if you need that. If you don't need that, you don't know about it, you don't care. But if you If you need that, you know you need it. The short version is you can send traffic from API gateway to a network load balancer without it going out over the internet anymore. Brilliant. Next. Saying there's another slide for it because there's an animation or something. That was how it used to be. Now it just goes over VPC private link and it hits directly to the ALB. So you don't have to have the NLB in the middle, which is great because you don't have to pay for the NLB to exist. Wonderful. Next. I had to put this in case there was a Rust dev in the room because they'd never forgive me if there wasn't, because, at least half, probably 80% of a Rust developer's job is talking about Rust. So I had to put it in. Lambda now supports Rust. It's GA. It was experimental. Now it's GA. So if you use Rust, you can write your Lambdas in it and it's just available and it's production grade and ready and all the rest of it. I hear good things. I'll never learn it because I don't care enough and I don't write enough to do anything other than dirty Python. So I'll continue to use bad Python. But if you are a Rust dev and you like Lambdas, you can do that now. Dev tools. There's a few of these, 21 of them, in fact. DevOps agents. There, I told you I hadn't skipped agents. So DevOps agent. It says, in addition to that, during Matt Garner's keynote, AWS DevOps agent was announced. Anyone heard the term frontier agent before? Yeah, cool. Frontier agents is at the forefront of what agents are capable of doing, because apparently everything has to have a metaphor for the Wild West, I think. Apparently. The idea of DevOps agent is it resolves and proactively prevents incidents, continuously improving reliability and performance. New class of AI agents. They act as always-on, autonomous, on-call engineers. So as soon as I get 10 minutes, I'm working out how to use that so I stop getting woken up at night. It's cheaper than hiring a junior engineer, I hope. I haven't really looked into it, but that is really interesting to me. It talks about things like reducing mean time to resolution, mean time to acknowledgement, all these sorts of things, which is really cool. Unfortunately, you do have to give it your existing runbooks and playbooks to train it, which means you must have actually had to write them in the first place. They need to not exist in just your head, John. So I need to fix that too. But that's really cool. I like that a lot. That is on my list of things that I want to fix just generally, so I stop being woken up. Yes, do more of that. Unified management in CloudWatch. Now, if you are doing things in CloudWatch, CloudTrail, VPC flow logs, WAF, Apache Iceberg through S3 tables, blah, 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 you can query all of it inside CloudWatch. So you don't have to muck around going into 16 different places to get the data. It's all in there, which is great. You can turn it on org wide as well, which is really nice. You don't have to go through every single account and go on. So if you've got 1,000 accounts, on. Great, wonderful. Anything else interesting about that? No, cool. Basically, if it is unified management for operational security and compliance data across AWS and third-party sources, great, wonderful. All there, go look. See, there's something about Kiro in there. There'll be more Kiro in a minute. I don't know why they put this slide before Kiro, but they did for some reason. I think because people know about Kiro and it was already kind of preview and now it's available, but whatever. IAM policy autopilot. It's a shame that Keith's not here because I know he's done this, but who here has done allow * in IAM before? I know Keith's done that, but he's not here. The idea is there is now an MCP. Everyone familiar with an MCP? Vaguely? Some people? Cool. MCP, Model Context Protocol. It's a server that tells LLMs how to talk to other things. And if it's telling it how to talk to another LLM, that's actually agent to agent, which is a different thing, but it's kind of the same thing. There is now an MCP server that helps your AI coding assistants make IAM policies, which is great because, again, they're really bad at doing just allow * on stuff because they were trained on bad data because lots of people just put * in things. Mostly because a lot of the blogs you find on the internet are as, what do I call him? Fellow user group lead John Topper refers to as optimized for mean time to hello world, which is an accurate term, I think. Lots of blogs are optimized for how quick can I get this thing going. So you often find them saying, just S3 *, that'll be fine. Just EC2 *, that'll be fine. Tighten it up later. And then nobody ever does. And things have been trained on that. This now helps you fix that. It will write your IAM policies for you properly. Good. Public preview of MCP server. So AWS has, as we were chatting about earlier, a whole bunch of MCPs out there. There's a general one, just the AWS MCP, which sort of sits in front of all of the rest of them, is how I think that works. Into a unified interface providing access to documentation, generating access and community calls to over 15,000 APIs for newly released services, pre-built workflows, standard operating procedures. They are not made on the fly, but they are pre-vetted, blah, 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 blah. Cool. So yes, if you're not sure which MCP you want, pick the AWS one for anything to do with AWS, because there's a bunch, right? There's documentation, there's billing, there's well architected, there's stuff for cloud formation, there's loads and loads and loads. That one kind of sits in front of all of it and goes, oh, I know something about all of it and that one. So that makes your life a whole lot easier. Next, delete protection for logs in CloudWatch. We are at 25 past. Cool, we are getting there. Did anyone hear about the incident that Ubiquity had a few years ago where a disgruntled SRE went and changed all of the log retention on their CloudTrail to 1 day before then going and doing a lot of very naughty things and deleting stuff and exfiltrating things and just generally being a naughty boy? People hear about that? You have. The idea is now CloudWatch gives you write once, read many, which is great. Worm model, which is fantastic. The idea is you now can't delete stuff if you turn delete protection on. Great, wonderful. To prevent exactly that sort of thing, right? Because CloudTrail, you can do that too. I mean, that's what the MCP for IAM helps you prevent. So that's cool. Like that a lot. Automated management for service quotas. So more things will now just auto update themselves when you hit quotas. So you have to worry about fewer of them. You still have to think about a few of them, but largely they start to just bump when you need them to bump without you having to raise a support ticket and say, please, can I have more than 8 of these CPUs in this slightly esoteric EC2 category, please? Ask me how I know about that one. I had to ask for 128 vCPU cores for C6IN instances once, because the default for that is 16, and I needed rather more than that. So yeah, things are being updated now. You can get updates through Slack, SMS, API, whatever. Wonderful. Code commit comes back to life. That's quite cool. That has to be in there. Everyone familiar with the snafu about code commit? Yeah, a few people. Cool. So code commit is AWS's answer to GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever, but it's a very poor cousin because much... I'll tell you for why in a minute. There's reasons. If you look at something like GitHub, that is a full-fledged kind of everything exists in the one pane of glass. Because AWS is building blocks, code commit is just the Git bit. It doesn't do the pipelines and all the various other bits and pieces because that's other bits of the code suite. That's code build, that's code pipeline, that's code connections and so on, right? But they had a Git offering. And then because someone in the organization was under the misguided notion that everything must earn money, I think, they killed it because it wasn't very well used. And they also killed the Cloud9 IDE, which I think annoyed only the people that maintain AWS workshops and no one else, because that was the only place I ever found it used. It was VS Code in the browser, right? But they killed that as well. They brought code commit back because people whinged very loudly about it. And they are bringing, and I said this on our podcast actually, a feature from 10 years ago is coming this year, apparently, which is Git LFS. Yeah, so yeah, this is a feature from 10 years ago that they are finally bringing to the service because, and again, this is what Matthias told me actually, was when they committed to killing it, they committed to killing it. So they just stopped all investment in it. It was dead, done, gone. And now they're committed to bringing it back and it's come back. So now they're committing to doing things with it again, which is, you know, nice. They don't use the word kill. They say decision about de-emphasis, which is, yeah, if you hadn't already used it, you couldn't. But if you was using it, you could still use it. But the idea, I think, was it was eventually just going to go away for everyone. It's now just available again. So if you want that, you can use it. I know you like this one too. Now, this is quite interesting. So billing transfer for AWS organizations. If you have an organization already, you kind of had this to start with, right? Because the whole point of an organization was centralization of your billing. You'd have one org with, I don't know, 20 accounts in, and all of them would send the bills to one payer account. Wonderful. You can now send the bill from that payer account to another org's payer account. This is really useful for a couple of very specific use cases. One of them is resell, because the old way of doing that was you had to change the root email address in the payer account, and that's how they did the distribution allocation, and people were very uncomfy with that. This fixes for that. The other thing it fixes for is if you are a large organization, I don't know, maybe you drill oil out of the ground, that kind of scale, you will probably have more than a few organizations. And historically, they'd have been on their own credit cards, or they've been off of their own bank details, or all off the same bank. We have multiple invoices for them, and that's a pain. Now, you can send all of them to a central one. Brilliant. Only supports 2 layers of inheritance, so you can send it up 1, but not any further than that. So because you're already doing 1 layer up to the first org, it's only 1 more up to the next one. I think more will come with time, but that's how they've released it to start with. And I like that a lot. That makes my life easier because we've got 4 or 5 orgs as well. So I like that a lot. No, but it does feel like pulling teeth sometimes. See, I told you Kiro was in here, but I don't know why they did the thing that Kiro can do before the slide about Kiro. I don't know. For the uninitiated, so hang on. I'm sorry, Internet, you can't do hands up, and I don't care. People in the room, anyone used an AI coding assistant? I know you have. Yeah, cool. Lovable doesn't count. Oh yeah, you did. Yes. Everyone that's here at our last event has used an AI coding assistant too. The idea is you now shout at a machine to write code for you as badly as you wrote it yourself. Wonderful. Kiro is AWS's attempt at that, is their version of it. It's a fork of VS Code. I'm a big fan. I used to really not like coding assistants because they were useless sort of 2 years ago. I remember Code Whisperer. It was horrible and useless. And then Q came along and that was better. And now Kiro's out and it's phenomenal. And now it's GA. It spent a very long time in preview. I got a bit of an early look at an event. And then about 2 weeks later, it went GA. And I was like, oh, okay, that was wonderful. But it's great. It's phenomenal. So Kiro is a thing. There's a whole lot of ways you can work with it. It does MCP, steering files, dev servers, auto agents, property-based tests, checkpointing. There's a CLI version. There's team plans, which we can't use because it's contact sales, annoyingly. But you know that's what that is. It's the first one that did spec-driven development and various other things as well. And it keeps getting updates. So it's had, I think, 3 updates since these slides were made in December. So Q is being rebranded. Yeah. So yeah, sort of. So the Q was never an IDE. So Q exists in the console and it existed on the CLI and there's a plugin for it. Yeah. This sort of. This is no. So Kiro is a full fork of VS Code. You download it, it's an installer. Yeah. It doesn't use Q because Q is just a way of using other things. You can still get the Q plugin for IntelliJ or VS Code or whatever, and Q in the console still lives. You can actually put the Q plugin in Kiro, but you don't need to because Kiro has its own. I think it's on there. So all that schmoo down the left, that's Kiro, right? The right as you are, that's Kiro. You can actually put the Q dev plugin in Kiro, but like, why would you? There's limited value to that. And the Q CLI has been merged into the Kiro CLI, but Q Business, Q in the console, and I think Q in AWS Docs, that still exists as Q at the moment. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm not in the product teams. I might, if I might try and find out. But the idea is there's now a full IDE. You don't just use Q on the CLI, you use Kiro on the CLI, you use Kiro in the IDE. And if you're desperately wedded to something like IntelliJ, you can still use Q for now. And I think they've committed to keeping that, but they might rebrand that as a Kiro plugin, not a Q plugin. But that's kind of the idea. How are we doing? 1:30, cool. Security, identity, and compliance. I suppose we're about to talk about this a bit. There's another agent. This time it's for security incidents, not general incidents. Same kind of concept. It does design security reviews, code security reviews, and on-demand penetration testing. Had to say it like that. So this doesn't necessarily replace. Die quietly. This doesn't necessarily replace something like a third-party pen test firm or general vuln scanning, but it is scanning, but it will do that. It will do pen testing as well, which is good. So if you just kind of need basics, go look at security agent. It's probably as good as a junior security engineer or something like that. This is what we're finding with a lot of these agents, is they're as good as AN junior such and such. They can use the tools, they can work the tools, but you do need to give them a lot of input to get there. Yep. It scans it and probes it and tries to penetrate it. Say as many dirty words as I can. Blah, 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 logging, security agent, validates frameworks, architectural documents and codes against standards, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, that's really good if you need to do some basic security tests and you can't afford a proper pen test company, I think, is the idea. Near real-time risk analytics in Security Hub. So this was updated in reInvent as well. The biggest difference from previous versions is the risk analytics is, rather than being eventually consistent, it's now near real-time. That's really handy. It doesn't, obviate the need for something like a SOC SIEM solution, but it does help in that regard. Detects critical risks by correlating and enriching security signals from Guard Duty, Inspector, and Security Hub CSPM, actionable insight, access to historical trends, 1 year of historical data, blah, blah, blah. So Security Hub has gotten a lot better. Cool. Extended threat detection now lives on EC2 and ECS. So it used to only be on EKS, and now it's on ECS and EC2 as well. So Guard Duty, put agent on machine, you get extended threat detection like that. It uses artificial intelligence and machine learning, obviously, trained at AWS scale to correlate security signals and detect critical threats, blah, 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 blah. 2 new critical findings: compromised instance group and compromised cluster. So the idea is if you've had something else hacked, it'll pick it up, which is good. I've used this quite a bit. This is a very esoteric little function, and I didn't think it was necessary until I started using it regularly for something that we were building. This is a new CLI command within the AWS CLI called AWS Login, which basically makes your life getting CLI creds just painless, right? There's been some tools have been made by people over the years to make this easier. I'm a big fan of granted.dev, but there's also Leap, which has got 2 P's in it, if you want to go look that up, and a few others that I don't recall. The idea being that you just say, I want to log into this account, please. Nah. Which it then goes off and does that for you and gives you your time-limited creds on the CLI. That's useful because it means you don't have to do the long-lived I am user thing that you're not meant to do anymore. And you don't have to go into the console and say, I want some creds, please, and then go and do the whole environment variable shmoo. Oh, breathe. This just kind of makes that a whole heap easier, because what you do is you log into the console, you say, I'm in this account, and then on your CLI, you type AWS login, and it goes, oh, you're already logged in over here. Is this a session you want to use? Push yes. And then for the duration of your session, you're logged in on the CLI as well. So that makes your life a whole heap easier if you don't want to be managing loads and loads and loads of configuration files or using IAM or all those sorts of things. So that's really useful as well. I'm probably not going to use that extensively, but it's one of those things that if you're in an account that you're not in very often and you just need some CLI access, bink, go. It was sort of the thing as well that Cloud Shell was designed to help with, because you then got a shell auth with the console inside the console. This is kind of taking it from the other angle because it's still on your machine, right? So if you still need to do things with local files and stuff, you just get really quick access, which we like. There's more malware protection. So there's Guard Duty malware protection already existed for S3 and EC2, I want to say. And the idea being is you could say, scan for malware against these things. Great. You can now do that within your backups as well. So I would argue that if you've already backed up malware, you've got a bigger problem. But if you have got poisoned backups, you can find that out now. Wonderful. If you back things up that are in DMZs and what have you, that you have to worry about being particularly, what's the word I'm looking for here? If you've got risk factors that you might have malware uploaded and you might accidentally back it up, you can scan your backups as it takes them for malware, and you go quarantine those and deal with them, which is really handy as well. We are now on slide 84, and we are 10 minutes ahead of time. Fantastic. Okay, so another thing about Builder Center, because that's as I say, there was 201 slides. I think 197 that you guys were meant to see. I've trimmed that down to about 60 stuff that I think is interesting, stuff that I care about. I cut out whole sections because it would take probably 2 hours and 3 of me to go through all of them. So I've cut a whole bunch of them down. There was, as the big number man said at the start, how many announcements were there? 400 and something before and 100 and something during, something like that. There's about 600 announcements, I think, in total, because it was top end of 400 and 116, I think. If you want these slides, Builder Center, PDF, you can have a version of them. You can go and read the whole thing. I don't know. Maybe you might want some light reading, bit of bedtime story for the kids, maybe. Key reInvent announcements, a whole bunch of community recaps going on. These recap events will continue to rumble on for probably another few weeks. If you happen to be in other parts of the country, there might be one of these and they'll have a different flavor of this. But if you want to go and look at the authoritative source, it's on Builder Center. Go there. Right, there's a few more bits and pieces, and then we have our final slide to wrap up. So AWS absolutely wants you to connect with them, stay up to date with them, give them all of your money, probably, or give some more of your money. It was built originally by builders for builders, and I think they're still trying to live by that. So main AWS, that is that's LinkedIn, that's X. If you're still on that massive cesspit, yeah, I don't care that one's on YouTube. These opinion of mine, X is horrible. And then what's that one? Is that Instagram or Snapchat? I'm so old. Is that Insta? Okay. And then the last one, I think, is Stack Overflow. And then there's YouTube channels and Skill Builder and a podcast and all sorts of other stuff. Of course, our podcast's better, but but it's not on there. It was on one of the earlier slides, though. Oh yeah, because our podcast is on our link tree. Yeah, it's on the link tree. So there's a whole bunch of things on there. They publish a lot of stuff on there as well for reInvent announcements, non-reInvent announcements. There's lots of resources for developers. You'll probably find your way to serverless land through one of those links, which is great if you do stuff with serverless. Blah, blah, blah. Create a builder ID, looking for online materials, look on Skill Builder, lots of relevant materials. You can get a certification, I think, for free through Skill Builder. We can do the training for free. There's quite a bit of freebies in there as well. Lots of links. Amazon want your data. Go give it to them. Right, and that is the endeth of Amazon slides. I have one more, which is our next event. So if you're paying attention, you scanned the code earlier, that will be on our Meetup group. I put this live earlier today, and that is the link for the next event on Meetup. We are having a returning speaker for the first time ever. So I don't know, what would you call him? Friend of the user group, I guess? Please tell me you picked that up. Yeah, so friend of the user group, Ryan Cormack, is coming to do the talk that he did at ComSum. I don't know if he's done it between now and then. Updated for recent stuff with reInvent announcements. API is in the fast lane, and it's in the fast lane because he works for Motorway, so everything's in the fast lane. This should be a really interesting talk, and I'm annoyed I missed it at ComSum because the one I went to was rubbish. Should have gone to his. Talking about, I don't have notes for this, but talking about things like API contracts and Smithy and various other bits and pieces. So if you're into serverless dev, event-driven architectures, like pizza, I don't know, we will be here on March the something, I forget. I should have put that on the slide, really. I published it earlier and completely forgot to write the date on the bleeding slide, so that was slick. But yeah, that's it. That's the last slide. Thanks very much. Are you going to find it so that we can tell the internet? I published it. Yeah.
11th of March. There you go.
It's the 11th of March for the internet. Thanks. No more slides. That's it. All done.